Let's see the next topic in general science, that is nervous system in biology. So as usual, before proceeding, let's see what are the types of questions which are generally asked in this chapter. First, you should be very thorough in the classification of nervous system, and the very important one is the structure of the neuron or the nerve cell. Afterwards, again, the very important one, I am marking it is brain and its part along with their role. The other includes spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system. Afterwards, you should be very known to this example of voluntary and involuntary actions. Finally, few of the disorders related to the brain. Okay, and out of this I will mark brain and its part and their role as one of the important topic, and the second one is the structure of the neuron. Okay, so the question says the central nervous system consists of what? So student, don't answer option A. If you have given option A, you are wrong, even though it is part of the central nervous system, but you should remember it consists of both brain and the spinal cord as a part of central nervous system. Okay, and we have seen in the theory class that there are basically three things which are the part of nervous system. First one is the neuron or the nerve cell, which is basically the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. The second one is the central nervous system. So this brain and spinal cord, these make the central nervous system, and it acts as a center for the information processing and control. And finally, the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral means which goes on the side of the system, and basically the main purpose that is that it connects central nervous system to all the part of the body. Okay, so all these nerve fiber you can see, basically these are the peripheral nervous system. Okay, let's see the next question. It is from the static GK portion, and this question was asked in CGL. Who won the Nobel Prize in 1906 for his neuron doctrine? Okay, neuron is what? It is a structure and functional unit of nervous system. Okay, and these are the four options. Henry Moseley you can straight away eliminate because he is related to the modern periodic table. Pierre Curie, if you take, that person is related to radioactivity, radium and all such things. Okay, radioactivity. And Alvarez is not the famous person. Again, Santiago Ramon Valcárcel, so he has basically won the Nobel Prize for his neuron doctrine. Okay, so those who have given option B, they are right. And we have seen a lot of pointers related to neuron and nerve cell. The first is that neuron is basically the structure and function unit of nervous system, and don't confuse with the nephron, which is structural and functional unit of the kidney. Don't confuse with nephron and the neuron. Nephron is related to kidney, whereas neuron is related to brain. Okay, what is so specialty about this neuron is that it can receive and transmit different kind of stimuli. Okay, so basically it can process or transfer the information. Okay, and the very important pointer is that it is the longest cell in the human body. Okay, and as we have already seen, Santiago Ramon Cajal, he is basically Spanish, and he is also known as father of modern neuroscience. Okay, father of modern neuroscience. Okay, let's see in which part of the neuron is information acquired. Okay, so there are 2-3 parts of the neuron. Okay, and basically neuron is a structural and functional unit which basically receive the information and process it or transmit to another body. Basically this part, dendrite, Let's see the figure first. So if you see, this is the neuron, okay, and if you see this portion, this portion, basically it is the cell body, and it is also called perikaryon, okay, and this cell body is again having branch like structure, okay. Basically this branch like structure carry the impulse, so it will receive the information through these dendrites, and afterwards this portion is axon, okay, and it basically forward the impulse or forward the information to the other parts, okay. And in between gaps of this axon you have nodes of Ranvier, and finally these are the synapses where there is a junction between the neuron, okay. Let's see the next question. How much does human brain weigh? Okay, about 2% of total body weight, 8%, 12%, and 15%. It is about 2%, okay. So 2% of total body weight brain carries, even though it is very small, but it consumes lot of oxygen for processing all such informations. And if you see, this is our original brain, and we have seen various facts. In fact, like brain weighs 2% of body and consume 20% of oxygen, and brain has no pain receptor. So whenever there is a surgery and if you prick something on the real brain, it will not feel any pain, okay. And the other thing that you need to remember, that the study of brain is called neuroscience, and the branch of medicine which deals with brain related disorder is called neurology. And the activity of brain is monitored with EEG, not ECG. It is electroencephalogram, okay. Let's see the next question. Which of the following part of the brain control emotional reaction in our body? This is very important question, okay. So we have seen various parts of the brain in our theory classes, and if you have attended those classes you can answer. It is hypothalamus, okay. So I will show you. So these are basically the important parts. So the first is the forebrain, second one is the midbrain, third one is the hindbrain, okay. So the forebrain consists of these parts: cerebrum, thalamus, hypothalamus, and corpus callosum, okay. Cerebrum is very important part of the brain because it is one of the largest part of the brain. Second, it is the thinking part. All the voluntary actions are basically decided by the cerebrum, okay. And the next one is thalamus. Thalamus, as you know, it acts as a relay center. It transmits the information. And the very important one is the hypothalamus, which is basically the master of master gland, that is pituitary gland, and it acts as a thermostat of the human body. It is going to control the temperature of all the body, and it lies at the base of the thalamus. What is corpus callosum? It connects the two hemispheres of the brain. So this is the corpus callosum. Then in midbrain there is nothing special, but if you take hindbrain or hindbrain, okay, so there are three parts, and out of these, cerebellum and medulla oblongata or medulla, these are the two important, okay. So cerebellum is the second largest part, and it is also known as little part, and again this is also controlling the voluntary action. Cerebrum and cerebellum both control the voluntary action, but if you want to coordinate precisely, then cerebellum would be required, okay. And whereas for involuntary actions, medulla is responsible, okay. Involuntary actions such as regulate breathing, coughing, salivation, and whatnot, okay. Motor skill are associated with which part of brain? So as you know, we have seen there are three parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. There is another way of dividing is frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe and occipital lobe, and these are the lobes. So this is a cross section. This is the frontal lobe, this is the parietal, temporal and occipital. This frontal lobe is basically responsible for thinking and motor skill. Parietal lobe is basically, parietal word itself say that it gives you spatial awareness like shape and directions. Temporal lobe is for hearing and occipital is for vision processing. Okay, let's see the next question. Which among the following activity are the voluntary muscles are involved? Jumping of frog, yes, this is the voluntary action, although it appears to be involuntary, but it is decided by the frog when to jump, so it is a voluntary muscle action is there. Movement of food in stomach is involuntary. We have no control over the food to go inside the stomach, so this is involuntary, so this is false. Pumping of heart, again we have no control over the heart pumping, so it is again a false. Writing in hand, it is voluntary action. Whenever I want I can write, so it is true. So option A and D are true, so option C is the right answer. And we have seen the difference between voluntary and involuntary actions, and out of this difference is very important. Voluntary action, the main responsible parts are cerebrum and cerebellum, but in the question you have to read it very carefully, and normally in textbook cerebrum is given to be the answer, but in some books like where precision is also there, then cerebellum would be the right answer. Okay, and for involuntary actions which can be done without will, for that medulla is the responsible part for involuntary actions. Involuntary actions like beating of heart, digestion, breathing, sneezing and movement of food inside the stomach. Okay, dash is responsible for precision of voluntary action and maintaining posture and balance of body. Just now I told you have to be very thorough in this cerebrum and cerebellum confusion. So whenever there is a precision word, okay, it is cerebellum who is responsible for voluntary action. Suppose if cerebellum is not given, only the voluntary action, then your answer should be cerebrum. Okay, but precision, if the word precision is there, you should answer cerebellum. Okay, which part of brain regulates breathing? So we know that breathing is involuntary action, right? So as we know that involuntary action is controlled by medulla, so those who have given option C, they are right. I pulled my hand back from the flame reflexive. Which organ is responsible for this action? Cerebrum, spinal cord, pons and medulla oblongata. See, one is voluntary action, another is involuntary, and sometimes it is a reflex. Reflex means something which acts as a spontaneous action. Okay, so as we know that spinal cord is the governor center of reflex action. So spinal cord has the ability to make it reflex action. Okay, and it connects the body with the brain through PNS, that is peripheral nervous system. How many spinal nerves are there in human nerves? Okay, so there are two types of nerves which are originated from the spinal cord. Okay, the spinal nerves, these are 31 pairs. Okay, remember, and the other one which originate from the brain are known as cranial nerves. Okay, cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Okay, so 31 pairs are the spinal nerves. What about the cranial nerves? So there are 12 pairs of the cranial nerves which are originated from the brain. So you can see these are the cranial nerves, for example optics, olfactory, trigeminal, facial. There are many names given to them. Okay, And the spanial nerve, which originate from the spinal cord, these are 31 pair, like 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, and other nerves. So you can see this picture. So these are the nerve pair. You don't need to remember all such names, only the number of the cranial nerves and spinal nerve you have to remember.